Hello, you're watching Tell It Like It Is with public officials, and as you can see beside me, my guest today is the Hillsborough County Attorney, Patricia LaFrance, who I'm going to take the liberty of calling Patty from here on in. Now, Patty is the brand new county attorney for Hillsborough County after having defeated Dennis Hogan, the incumbent, in the November election. So she officially came on the job literally at the beginning of January. She brings a tremendous amount of experience to the job because she actually served as a prosecutor for Hillsborough County for over 11 years. And she has successfully prosecuted literally hundreds of cases, some of which became very prominent in the news. And if I mentioned them, you'd immediately be able to say, oh yeah, I remember that. She's well known throughout the state of New Hampshire for her legal abilities and for her very, very close work with all of the area police departments. She really has gained their support tremendously because she has worked hand in hand with them and served as a great resource for them as well. And I think what's really impressive about Patty is on top of her career and all of the dedication she brings to it, she's well known for her, I would say, absolutely tireless volunteer advocacy for abused and disadvantaged kids. Patty's the type of person that really brings a true passion to everything that she does. And, you know, you'll listen to her and you see her, and while she always brings that very calm and controlled and poised demeanor and exterior, let me tell you something. She's one fierce contender when it comes to fighting for justice to be done in our court system. On the personal side of things, Patty and her husband have 4 young kids, so this is one really busy lady, which makes me particularly appreciate the fact that she's making time to be with us here again today. Patty, I have not seen you since the election, so first of all, official congratulations.
Thank you very much, Kathy, and I want to thank you for your support and your kindness and our interviews that we had during the campaign.
Oh, no, hey, we enjoyed having you, and I thank all of the viewers. I got a lot of comments from people, how much they learned listening to you and such, and you certainly made a great impression.
Oh, well, I'm glad. That's, I guess, part of campaigning, right?
Well, yeah,
to
hey,
sell yourself.
And obviously it was successful. You wouldn't be sitting here now as county attorney.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, you know, maybe the way to start out, especially for folks who may not have seen the previous shows, maybe you might want to start out just kind of giving an overview of the county attorney's office,
Sure.
You know, what it does, what it's responsible for, and then we can kind of swing into all the things you're doing.
I could do that.
All right.
Well, the county attorney's, I can talk directly to the camera if
Absolutely.
you want. Okay. Well, the
Absolutely.
county attorney's office, we prosecute all the felonies that occur in the county of Hillsborough, with the exception of murder. So first degree, second degree murder is prosecuted by the Attorney General's office. But every other felony, from serious sexual assault down to a theft of over $1,000, we would prosecute, and, you know, drug crimes and the like. So we've got a pretty heavy caseload. We work, you know, there are a number of prosecutors both in our Manchester office and the Nashua office, because Hillsborough is the only county with 2 superior court houses, because we have the 2 largest cities in the state. So we do have prosecutors who work both out of Manchester and Nashua, along with not only you know, obviously our legal secretaries, but also an important part of our office is our victim witness advocates, who work hand in hand with our prosecutors in cases where victims, you know, of violent crime need kind of a little bit of extra information and extra help in really navigating through the system. And of course we have also our investigators, 2 investigators, 1 in each office, and we also have legal interns who work for us, local college students who during the summer or during the year will assist us in providing legal motions and pleadings to the court. So that's a general Hillsborough County Attorney's Office in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, that was good. Because, you know, again, people, all these departments, agencies and such surround us, but sometimes we don't pay enough attention to what they're actually responsible for.
And it did shock me, not really shock me, but it was surprising to hear during the election that I'd go around campaigning, and a lot of people didn't know what the county attorney's office did. They just thought the county attorney was an attorney for the county, like a civil attorney. And, you know, I think sadly a lot of people don't realize what our office does until they're victims of crime, you know, of a felony level crime, and then they realize, oh, okay, these are the prosecutors. Because everybody is so used to hearing district attorney.
I was just going to say
Law
that.
and Order and all those shows on television. So, but we serve the same function. We're prosecutors.
Yeah, because, I mean, as a Massachusetts native, of. You know, it was always I mean, if you
Right.
heard the DA's office was involved, you knew it was something big.
Yes.
And when I
Yep.
first moved up here, I guess I would have to plead the same thing, that county attorney, I just thought it was an attorney for the county,
Right,
doing
right.
whatever, you know, personnel or whatever,
Yep.
leases, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I know, just from talking to you prior to your winning the election, that you had quite a list of things that you had for goals were
Yep.
you to win. So, I have a feeling you might want to talk about some of them.
Right, right. Well, I mean, you know, I think one of my goals is to make sure we have the staff that we need in order to prosecute crimes. I'm really looking into getting some grant funding. Sadly, with the tragedy in Newtown, you know, people are focused on gun
Yes.
crimes, and we had a gun prosecutor. We had a federal grant for that a few years ago. We lost that grant, and you know, I guess a silver lining to that awful cloud is that hopefully we'll be getting some funds. So I'm looking into that. I know usually the Attorney General's office is the conduit to all those grants, so I'm started to research that. But another avenue I'm looking into is community service for defendants who are appropriate to be given community service. You know, I think sometimes the mentality, or people think the mentality of prosecutors is everybody should be in jail, and that's not true. We have some cases, you know, nonviolent people who have committed some type of crime that, you know, they haven't really hurt anybody, but they're charged with a felony level crime, and you know,
So
they
would
don't
that
have
be
a
like
criminal
white
record.
collar crimes? or-
Well, you know, it could be, you know, they haven't maybe physically hurt somebody. Maybe they forged a check from a
Okay,
family member.
yeah,
Usually it's for,
yeah.
you know, to get money for drugs, or even, you know, somebody's caught with a small amount of cocaine, but it's still a felony level crime.
Yeah.
So, you know, those types of maybe nonviolent offenders, for maybe first-time offenders, or even somebody who just repeatedly has these charges, I don't think it helps to just throw them in jail. Let's have them give back to the community, and that's my goal, is to develop a community service program. And I, you know, I've been, as part of my pleas, I've been giving community service, or I'm asking the judge to give community service. In many, you know, I've given thousands and thousands of hours of community service in my cases that I've had over the years. I really want to really whittle that down and have a program where we have a community service database where if a defendant isn't interested in animals, say, in a good way, you know,
Right,
maybe
right.
they volunteer for the local animal shelter and learn a skill. You know, so I have that database where I can say, hey, you know, I have 10 providers in the Manchester area who will willingly take, you know, people who are charged with a crime or convicted of a crime, and they have, you know, these opportunities for community service. So, you know, that's what I hope to really get on the ground running. Because right now, you know, I give community service, and they'll come back after a year and say, oh, I did it at such and such a place. And it's great, you know, if it's a registered charity in New Hampshire, absolutely. But I think, you know, sometimes it's even better if they can learn a skill. And one of the proudest moments I've had this week actually, is when a defendant actually gets a job out of community service.
Yeah.
And actually, yesterday I was in court with a girl, and she was volunteering. It was at an elderly, they offered services for the elderly, and you know, she was learning a skill. I think it was nutrition based, and she had a job interview. And I said, if there's anything I can do, you know, I'll certainly write a letter, or you know, let her know exactly the circumstances. And I'm sure they did know, because she was doing community service there. So, I mean, it's wonderful to you know, have her turn it around. She was, you know, she was charged with a minor possession of a drug. You know, it was a small amount, and she turned around and turned her life around, and is learning a skill that hopefully she can get a job out of. So that's really the goal of the community service.
Yeah, and I mean, she probably had no idea prior to that she had an interest in either nutrition or working with seniors.
Right.
And that's a big need.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of
Right.
people, I mean, every senior facility, I think probably in the state, is looking for more people to work who are
Right.
dedicated to that.
Right,
Not
exactly.
just a kind of a, you know, stay there for a couple months and move on.
Right.
Because it is a special kind of job. It takes a special kind of person
Oh,
to,
yeah, it really
to
does.
stay with that.
It really does, yeah.
And so that's great. I would imagine that would be like something that would really focus in on a lot of young people too, you know,
Oh, yeah.
who maybe made bad judgments. You know, not bad people, but
Right.
young people sometimes, just because of inexperience or immaturity, do stupid things.
Oh, yeah. Yes. We have a lot of those. And sadly, you know, I think sometimes the feeling of some people is, well, just, you know, drop the charge then, and they learn their mistake. Well, you know, I'm a parent. It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
Unless
No.
there's consequence. It doesn't have to be jail. Like I said, if it's 200 hours of community service, but there has to be a consequence for their action. They possessed drugs, or they went out and forged a check. You know, they stole their parents' check and, you know, forged a check. There needs to be a consequence,
Positively.
a legal consequence.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's my goal, is to hopefully understand that there was a consequence, but it doesn't have to ruin your life, and you can actually get something out of it.
Yeah, because, I mean, obviously, anybody who gets sent off to any type of a prison or a jail, it's not a good experience.
Right, right. And I mean,
They're not going to
don't
come out
get me
with
wrong.
positive results.
Yeah,
so,
there are
so to
some
speak.
people who need to be in jail.
Oh,
You know, and
absolutely, yeah.
there's you know, there are some people who just, they don't care about helping other people. They're out for themselves. They are dangerous, and they absolutely need to be in prison. But there are some people who, you know, like you said, made a mistake, or, you know, got into a bar brawl or something. And, you know, they don't have a criminal record. Then it
who
doesn't
did a
really
stupid
do,
thing.
Right.
I mean, you hate
exactly.
to see them kind of thrown into that
Right.
atmosphere and
Yeah.
come out of it. I mean, I don't see how they wouldn't come out of it with some scars, at least.
Yeah.
Not physical scars, but, you know,
Right,
mental,
right.
emotional, what have you.
Yep.
Yeah, so now, is that something that will take a long time to actually put into effect, or is it something that...
Well, the database and collecting, you know, my goal is to have kind of like an application process. So I can say, okay, if you want people working for you doing community service, you need to give us something. You need to confirm that, you know, they have put in, you know, 200 hours, or you are teaching them a skill. So there's going to be criteria to get on the list. But I mean, now, you know, the attorneys in the office, I've already told them, hey, listen, if you have a case and you're thinking, oh, I want to put them in jail for 30 days just to give them a taste of jail, said rethink that and maybe give them 200 hours of community service. Because what I did in the beginning, the first meeting I had with my staff, was saying, listen, you know, I learned from the campaign that not a lot of people know what our office does.
Right.
And we need to start looking at this sort of as a business. You need to show, you know, the taxpayers, they want some return on their investment, if you will, when they pay into us. So what are they getting out of it? Well, they're getting justice, but it's hard to put a price on justice.
Of
Sometimes
course,
it can
yeah.
be priceless. But also, you know, let's show them, hey, listen, we had this amount of cases where we gave, you know, 10,000 hours of community service. That's work, free work going back into the community. And by the way, in lieu of that, we didn't put them in jail for 30 days. So that's saving money.
A lot of money.
You know, right. So that's what I told them. I said, so let's document that, and let's show the taxpayers, show the delegation that I have to go in front of and ask for a budget, show them what we're doing to, you know, to use their money wisely. It's their money, and, you know, we want to show them, here's what we're doing with that. Besides putting away, you know, the very, very bad people in prison, we're also being creative and making sure that we get the most bang for our buck, if you will.
Sure. Now, if I were, say, for instance, the executive director of a nonprofit, we don't even have to figure out what kind of nonprofit, but any kind of
Any
nonprofit.
yeah.
And I heard about the program, or I had been contacted by somebody, you know, in your office saying,
Right.
this is what we're doing, are you interested? As an individual, you know, who was not part of the whole criminal justice system or the legal system or whatever, perhaps my first question to you would be, well, I might be interested, but how do I know I'm safe? I mean, how do I
Right.
know that I'm not going to have some person that I really don't want on our premises?
Right.
How would you answer me?
Well, I'd say, first of all, it would be, you know, nonviolent offenders. We're not going to give somebody who's charged with stabbing somebody multiple times community service, you know, in a elderly home or something.
Oh, yeah.
But and you know, quite frankly, anybody charged maybe with a monetary crime, we would say, hey, listen, you know, this person, they might be great in this field, but don't, you know, they might
Don't
not
let
be
them
able
near
to
the
be
cash
bonded,
register.
say. Yes, exactly. So, yeah, you know, the goal is to work with that. But, you know, absolutely, you know, I would never guarantee absolutely
no, of course
100%
you can't.
anybody's safety. You never know what's
No,
going to
of course
happen.
not.
But, you know, the
You
protections
can't
that we
guarantee
can
that
put
with
in
a normal employee.
Right, exactly. And you know, I would say, hey, listen, here's the safeguards we're going to have in place. You know, we're going to be hopefully recommending somebody who wants that. I mean, if I'm going to give community service, I want to make sure, first of all, they have to accept that as a plea. So, and I have had defendants say, forget it, I'll just do 30 days in jail.
Really?
You know, oh yeah, yeah. So, you know, if somebody doesn't want it.
That kind of suggests a little different mindset,
right,
doesn't it?
Right, right. So, you know, it would be somebody who wants that. You know, it would never be something that they weren't accepting as part of their plea negotiation.
So are they automatically on probation, I assume?
No, well,
that,
actually, that's, you know, probation, like everybody,
two
is
different...
completely understaffed, and you know, they're overwhelmed
with
I'm sure. Caseloads.
Yeah, I'm
so
sure.
the idea is perhaps those people who don't need to be supervised, you know, those low risk, you know, non-violent offenders like the, you know, first-time drug offender, they don't need supervision. So instead, we'll give them what's called a deferred sentence, or just have a review hearing in a year to say, okay, here are the things you had to do. You had to get a LADAC evaluation just to make sure you don't have an ongoing drug addiction. You had to do
explain what that is now for
a
those
LADAC
who
is
don't
a
know what that
licensed
is.
alcohol drug counselor.
So you guys talking acronyms,
right,
I
know,
sometimes
I know,
somebody's
it's
like,
awful.
what'd she just say?
Basically, they conduct an evaluation to see, okay, does this person have a drug or alcohol problem, or is it some, you know, was it a one-time thing? If it was a bar brawl, were they out celebrating his 21st birthday?
Sure.
So they conduct this evaluation, and then they make recommendations. Okay, you need to go to AA twice a week for, you know, 90 days. So they'll make recommendations to the person. So that might be one criteria. I'll say, okay, what was did you get your LADAC evaluation? What did they say? They'll come back after a year, you know, where's your proof of community service? And then if everything goes as planned, then, you know, they're on their way, and they'll have that, whatever the criminal conviction is, it could be reduced to a misdemeanor level offense instead of a felony. So we'll, you know, we'll hold them accountable, but they have to come back and prove
on their own.
that they've done.
You're not going to go looking for them.
Right. Right.
Okay.
They'll be given a court date in a year to say, okay, you need to come back and show us why you shouldn't, you know, go to jail. Because they'll have a jail sentence hanging over their head. It'll be a
That's still there.
Right, so they'll have, you know, say 12 months in the House of Corrections, suspended for a year, conditioned on A, B, C, and D. So that's the goal. And that way, you know, probation, those are people who probation might not be able to supervise them. You know, they might say, well, come back in 6 months and check in. That doesn't really do anybody any good. It's just an extra piece of paper. So
that's true.
let's put people on probation who really need that supervision. That's what, you know, probation is telling us. That's what the court is telling us. So we're absolutely willing to, you know, help out and do whatever we can. But again, making sure that that person who committed the crime, they're not just set free. They have responsibilities, and if they want the benefit of getting a very kind of sweet plea deal, then sure.
Now, in a case like that, you know, say some 18-year-old kid, you know, again, was stupid and a big party at a house in Bedford, and it went crazy, and the police had to come in and arrest everybody, and, you know, the whole 9 yards. And, you know, that was a one-time thing. These weren't kids that were, you know, otherwise involved until the night they all got silly. In a case like that, could this all wind up being annulled? That there's no record of it that kind of follows them through their future?
Right. I mean, eventually, everybody has the right, except for sex offenders, to have a record, and murderers, I think.
Everybody has the right?
Yeah.
Really?
They can get, eventually,
they
can get, you know, for felonies, it's 6 years upon the conclusion of your sentence. So if you had a sentence suspended for 2 years, you know, from today's date, then, you know, January 31st of 2015, 6 years after that, you could petition to have it annulled. And if you haven't had any other convictions.
It's not an automatic thing. Somebody actually has. Now, do they have to show cause why they want it annulled? Or?
Yeah, well, they file a petition with the court, and basically it's saying, okay, I pled guilty to this, and there might be 1 or 2 charges, depending, and they'll say, there's a checkoff. You know, they say, I have not been convicted of any other crimes. I completed my sentence, and then they petition the court to say, okay, my record should be annulled. So, and then the court decides.
And then it's gone.
Right.
So that when they apply for a job in the future or whatever, it's not something, or somebody's going to Google and go, whoops, didn't know that.
Well, Google's another matter.
Well, yeah, that's true too, because you can't, can't control cyber world.
Right, right. Unfortunately, once it, you know, if there's an indictment, and I know it's published on a lot of in the community newspapers, the record, unfortunately, will probably be out there on the internet. But as far as the court records go,
Yeah, that's true. Or an enterprising reporter can dig
Right.
enough to find things.
Right.
You know, just, and again, I hope this doesn't like throw you off track. With all the cyber crimes and things we hear about and all that kind of craziness and violation of people's privacy and so on, is that something now that falls under your department too if it happens within the county, or is that
Oh,
a
yeah.
totally different end
No,
of the
if-
judicial system?
No, cybercrime, I get, it encompasses a broad array of crimes. You
Oh,
could
yeah.
have, online solicitation
Yeah.
of a minor, which we've been, our county as well as other counties, there's an ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children. See, I did the acronym, but then I explained what it was.
Perfect.
I think one of our detectives from Bedford is actually on that.
I think I heard that, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So it's Internet Crimes Against Children, so they work on kind of, the stings like the guy on NBC there.
Yes, yeah.
So
yeah.
they go undercover in chat rooms, and
that's just
we've
getting
prosecuted
totally
many,
crazy,
we
that
prosecuted
whole thing.
dozens and dozens in
Oh, I bet.
Hillsborough County.
So it is. It is on the county
Right,
level, huh?
right, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And we've had cases come in, and these are more difficult cases because usually it involves, for some reason, far across the country, somebody sent $2,000 to buy something, and never got it sent to them over Craigslist or what's the other one there? I don't use it, so.
I don't know. Is
So,
Angie's List? Or
yeah,
no, or is
no,
that might be more a
the,
reference thing or something.
Yeah, so when that happens, that, could technically be considered a cybercrime because it happens over the internet. So, and then of course
Sure,
there's child sexual abuse images, which in the old days was child pornography, but we call it child sexual abuse images now. We have,
That's
again, the
scary
Internet
stuff,
Crimes
and it
Against
just
Children.
seems to be getting huger and huger.
Yeah, sadly. And like you said, once it's on the internet, unfortunately, it's very, very sad. So we've had a lot of those cases as well.
And how about not that they're, trying to do it for profit or whatever, but what about, these situations where, again, a kid does a stupid thing and sends off that photo to the boyfriend, and all of a sudden
yeah.
everybody in the high school has it, and
Right.
it makes it onto the internet worldwide and everything. Are you
Yeah.
running into much of that?
We have seen a few of those,
Yeah.
sadly, and sometimes if the girl, usually it's a girl,
Yeah.
if she's 18, unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's not considered images, child
Wow.
sexual abuse images, or so. But there are privacy laws that we could look at. So yeah, it all depends on the egregiousness of it. If somebody went in and hacked somebody's computer to get that, I know we've seen that sometimes
I
with the
bet.
celebrities, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, depending, we would absolutely prosecute that.
And again, stupid kid thing.
Right,
They have no clue what's out there is forever.
and that's why
They just don't.
education, I feel, is a major part. I just don't want to be reactive as a county attorney. I want to be proactive in preventing crimes, and that's why, I think we're doing another show on this, the Granite State Children's Alliance.
Yes,
I'm very
yes, that's gonna be an
proactive. I want to
excellent
get out
show,
there.
yes.
But talking to teenage girls and saying, don't do that.
I know.
They don't understand.
No, they don't. They don't think they're in
immature.
love.
They
I
don't
know.
understand the consequences of their actions. It's not just you giving an old snapshot. It's there forever. So that's
Yeah.
part of the education, and part of the goal is to prevent crime.
And when you're 15, 16, 17 years old, you don't think a lifetime. You really don't.
Right.
You
No,
know, it's all
no.
for today.
Yeah, yeah,
Crazy.
yeah.
So that's going to be a very interesting thing. Now, let's go back a little bit to the gun crime thing now. That you did indicate you want to have somebody specifically focusing on that.
Right.
So now, how will that make things different than they are right now?
Well, it'll increase the caseload, that's for sure, because there are,
Yeah.
I guess when you hear from, this gun debate that's going on now,
Yeah.
part of the sentiment of the pro-gun crowd is that we should enforce the laws that already exist. So, okay, let's take a look at those laws, like people who are trying to buy firearms who shouldn't. Let's start prosecuting those. So I want to look into that, because we get information and there's no resources. So I want to coordinate with the local prosecutors to make sure, okay, they're right. Let's start, prosecuting the gun crimes that are already out there. So that's what I hope to do with the gun prosecutor.
Well, it does. And again, I hope this isn't an unfair statement, and I don't refer to this county or New Hampshire, but it sort of does seem as though it's not that hard to get a gun if you really want one. We keep reading about these crazy things that are happening around the country with guns, and somewhere in the story hearing, and they weren't licensed to have one.
Right,
You know,
right. And yeah, I mean, you know, it's I guess easy to get a gun illegally.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be easy
Yeah.
to get a gun
Yeah.
legally if you shouldn't get a gun.
Do you think we need, well,
No, I think
I don't want
they're
to put
very
you on the
vigilant.
spot
Yeah, no,
because
I think the gun
it's
line-
an exciting debate in New Hampshire, but do you think we need to toughen things up in New Hampshire?
No,
Or not?
no, I think we just need to start holding people accountable for when they're going, because I think they do a really good job of stopping people from getting guns in New Hampshire. We get a lot of reports saying, okay, here's who tried to buy a gun. So I think they're doing a great job, and then we just have to pick up the ball and prosecute them. And that's my
Kind of
goal.
sounds like some states, they're not
Right.
really
Well, I don't know about states,
strong,
but yeah, I mean,
yeah.
like I said, it's a matter of just getting the prosecutor the position and having somebody do it, because it's a full-time job.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit here.
Okay.
Don't be mad at me, but you know,
I won't be mad
have
at
to
you.
do it. I have to do it. As you know, and I know you know, because obviously you're county attorney, and obviously you were cited in the lack of crowd at Bedford High School a few weeks back. As you know, the big thing in the news around Bedford was the Casada home
Right.
invasion, purported home invasion on
Yeah.
Proclamation Court back in, I guess it was late November. And obviously something that doesn't happen in Bedford every day,
Right.
even though it happens all around the country every day. And people obviously reacted strongly to it because it was kind of foreign
Oh, sure.
in this town. And I know that you're aware of the fact, because you were there, that the chairman of our town council saw fit to call a kind of public, I forget what he called it, a public dialogue or whatever, at the high school for
Right.
people to come in and hear all about it and ask questions and so on and so forth, even though certainly the police were as forthcoming as they could be from the get-go, even though the police chief and department members and so on had met with neighborhood people and said to them, you know, everything's under control and eased their minds. Even though from the get-go, all of us were told we're not under siege in Bedford. You know, you don't have to run out and buy a gun or,
Right.
or load up on bullets or anything. Everything's under control. You know, no need for panic. They had this public hearing, which I was very happy to see few people attended. And I don't know if you're aware of the fact or not. I did a commentary on it, right at this very table, in fact.
No, I didn't
And
see it.
and I had a little bit to say
I have
about
to
it.
catch up on my viewing. I've been a little busy
Oh,
lately.
gee, I'll email it to you. And I had a little bit to say about that because I felt as though, for one thing, they were throwing the police chief under the bus, because to expect him to make public comments beyond what he was making, to me, was absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
And obviously, if you hold a public meeting, you're going to have reporters and people sitting there who are going to ask him questions that he obviously is not going to be able to answer to their satisfaction.
Right.
Well, and I went further and said, I think you're, you know, and essentially putting every cop in town in danger because you're inciting people. You're putting in their mind there's something scary going on. And, you know, I mean, people who get worked up sometimes aren't clear thinkers. And, I mean, I just had these visions that, you know, a Bedford cop might be doing a patrol thing, checking out a noise or whatever, and some resident will come charging out and go boom,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
because,
that would- yeah.
exactly. Well, in any event, they had this hearing, and as would be expected, the public who were there, thankfully, again, you were there, and there weren't a lot, and the reporters did ask certain questions, which the chief answered as much as he could.
Right.
And then, of course, they went off on this tangent questioning how long it took the police to be there, because I guess we have some of these shoot 'em up, knock the door down types that figured they should have gone in there with blazing guns instead of arriving, assessing the situation, making sure everybody was safe, and then taking care of what needed to be taken care of. I mean, we're not cops, so we shouldn't be telling them how to do the job they're trying to do. So then, are not satisfied with his public hearing. I don't know if you're aware that then the council chairman, Mr. Germany, decided that he wanted an independent investigation done of the department's activities that evening. And a lot of us had a great deal to say about that. Like, you know, this is bizarre. And I have no idea how or why, but in any event, that kind of have faded, into oblivion. He's not pushing that right
Right.
now. I like to think it's because some of his fellow councilors looked at the whole thing and went, "Are you kidding me? Knock it off."
Right.
Meanwhile, though, the police chief, John Brafonsky, remains under fire from a certain segment of our population. And using words like, he's not giving us a heartfelt explanation of what's going on, because they want to know everything. And because he's answering the way he should,
Right.
professionally and so on, they're damning him. And on online chats and so on, even saying things like he needs to be fired because he's not responding to Bedford people. So that long preamble leads me to saying, you are a prosecutor.
Right.
And, when the police are done their work, it now goes into your lap
Yes.
to go the next way.
Right.
And I guess what I'm saying to you is, can you explain to those dunderheads who may exist in Bedford still why the police chief has to take the posture that he has taken on this?
Sure. And I'm a politician, so I'm not going to call them dunderheads. I think
No,
people,
I can get away
yeah,
with that.
I know.
They can get as mad at me as they
Right.
want. I really
Well,
don't care.
And you know what? I am willing, and Chief Brafonsky and I have been working on this
I
since
know
the
that you
beginning.
have, yes.
I've been to many meetings over at Bedford PD with two of the assistant county attorneys in our office. We've been working hand in hand. I mean, really, Bedford PD and state police have been doing a tremendous job. And I've seen Chief Brafonsky at work, and he's doing everything he can. And I think the criticism, I think it stems from fear that people have, and rightly so. This was a very, very frightening scene that happened out at Proclamation Court. I think it stems from people not understanding how the process works, because of misinformation they have from TV, the TV shows we see. Sadly, this isn't an episode of Law and Order.
No, it's not.
We don't solve our crimes in an hour and have everybody, convicted within an hour. It takes a long time. There's a lot of investigation that needs to happen, and that takes time. Interviews that need to be done, analysis that needs to be done of evidence. It's just a very, very time-consuming process. And I've been talking to Chief Brafonsky, and I said, listen, I know you're getting a lot of heat. Send it over to me. I'm going to take that criticism, because ultimately I have to be worried about the ultimate product, which is hopefully a conviction for
correct.
the person or persons responsible for this heinous act that happened at Proclamation Court. So I'm willing to take the heat, because I need to be concerned with the integrity of the investigation. And if we're releasing information, that might jeopardize something further down the road. If we're releasing too much information about a crime, well, that might trigger something that kind of messes up what somebody might have seen, because did they get that information from television, from the news reports,
Yep.
or is it something that they've seen, that they themselves witnessed? So it's very crucial that sometimes the details cannot get out about a crime. Now, not to say that the public will never be told what happened.
No,
Hopefully,
of course not.
we'll
At some
have
point in
an
time,
arrest and
yeah.
a trial, or
At
a
some point.
conviction, and certainly, we'll learn more. And I
And
gotta
even
tell-
then, they may not hear everything, because there will be things that won't be allowed in court for
Right.
one reason or another.
Right, exactly. And I have two obligations, well, three really, and Chief Brafonsky shares this with me, is our first obligation is to solve the crime and protect the citizens of not only Bedford, but my obligation is the citizens of Hillsborough County. In order to do that, we need to conduct a thorough investigation.
Yep.
My other responsibility, of course, is to make sure we get a conviction for somebody who committed these crimes. But, my obligation to the people of Hillsborough County includes essentially letting them know everything that they can know within the proper framework. Now, my other obligations are ethical obligations. I cannot, if we were to make an arrest today in that matter, I can't go on TV and start telling you everything about the
course not.
case. I'm ethically prohibited as a prosecutor from doing that. There's certain information that I can give, and it's in our rules of professional responsibility. There's a section, special responsibilities of a prosecutor. So I'm ethically prohibited from giving out a lot of information. Like I said, there's certain information. But also, on top of that, and that's ethical rules. Those are rules. I also have an obligation to the victims. There is a Victims' Bill of Rights that ensures them confidentiality. So that's my other concern, is that even if we make an arrest and I'm allowed to give some details of the crime, you know, people are asking me, you know, say for instance how Dr. Quesada is doing. And I said, you know, I've spoken with people who are close to him. He wants to keep everything private. That's his absolute right.
Of course.
And I had actually a reporter say to me, well, the public has a right to know how he's doing. I said, no, they don't.
No, they don't.
I mean, not. Are they asking because they're concerned for his well-being? Well, I'm sure his family members are taking care of him. Or are they concerned just to find out what's going on? And, you know, I had to correct her and say, they absolutely do not have a right to know about his private health conditions. We have HIPAA, you know, HIPAA laws. So, and again, we have privacy, confidentiality of victims' personal information. So, you know, those are my obligations. And my, you know, the first obligation is obviously the safety of the community. Excuse me, not satisfying that initial need to get information. That's secondary. Because in order to make the community safe, I have to make sure that whoever did this is put away for a long time. So that's my responsibility, because it doesn't do me any good. You know, I could, I guess, satisfy some of the inquiry with giving out more details, but not at the risk of the prosecution.
Of course.
And I wouldn't think anybody would want that. So I understand it's very frustrating.
I don't know. I mean, some of them are arrogant enough to believe that because they ask a question, they should get an answer.
Right. And, you know, I know it's very frustrating. And I think, like I said, a lot of that frustration comes from fear. And it is very, very scary. You know, as you said, I have 4 children. I think about that all the time. So what I can say is that just take the normal precautions you would.
Only because of the fact that from the get-go, we were all told clearly that there was no need for any of us to do anything beyond the normal safety things that we already do.
Right.
And obviously, if there was any danger to any of us, we would have been told. I mean, they wouldn't leave us all out there like hapless sheep, you know, for somebody to come and attack us.
Right.
So, I mean, again, to me, I see more of that. I always refer to the Bedford bubble, you know. I see a healthy share of that arrogance. I want to know, therefore you will tell me attitude happening in this town.
Well, and like I said, you know, I tend to be an optimist. I think some of it is out of fear.
You're nicer than I am.
I think it's out of fear and just concern for their own well-being. And, you know, maybe a little bit of it is, you know, water cooler gossip. But, you know, I'd say emphatically that the Bedford Police Department and the state police, they're working hand in hand with consulting with our office. They are doing everything they can to go down every avenue. And I can tell you that we're making progress. So
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And these things do take time. I mean, I mentioned to somebody the other day down in Andover, Mass., and you probably heard about it because you follow everything and it's been in the news. Over a year ago, a wealthy, well-known couple down there, very active in the community, philanthropy, everything else, who lived in what would legitimately be called a mansion, were found murdered in their home by their daughter. I guess it was the morning after, who was dropping off the grandchildren for them to babysit as planned that morning. And lots of mystery involved. Their Mercedes was found down, I think, on the north end of Boston, burned to a crisp, and a lot of craziness. And of course, people went crazy, you know, much like up here, you know. And people were making a lot of noise about it. But, you know, the town officials very clearly said, knock it off. You know, there's an investigation going on. It'll be solved. It's going to take a while. Knock it off.
Right.
And it's not solved yet. I know they're working on it, and ultimately it will be solved. But I'm sure there's so many side stories and everything else that have to be checked. I mean, they're probably going back on everybody involved from the day of birth, how long their mother was in labor. You know, I mean, so it's crazy. And we did not see in this town, I sincerely, truly believe in, you know, the town council chairman was blathering that, oh, he was getting hundreds of calls from people, you know, wanting to know. And I mean, to my way of thinking, as a leader, he should have been saying, excuse me, let the police do their job. Not putting other ideas in people's heads are putting fears in people's heads by calling public meetings, or insinuating that the police department didn't do their job by calling for an independent investigation of their performance that night.
Right.
I mean, that was just plain wrong.
Yeah. Well, like I said, some of it's out of fear, but
Well, I don't think that's his excuse.
right. Well, I know it can be frustrating.
Yeah.
But I
Well, I mean, I
say
think
to
it's
people
wrong
because
to
my
see
friends,
the chief getting burden on this one.
Right.
Right. I mean,
no, and that's
it's
unfair.
just wrong,
Like
and
I said,
it's wrong to the whole department.
I stand behind Chief Brafonsky 100%. He's doing a great job of coordinating his guys with the state police, and he's there every night. We had a meeting last night, and they're late, and he's very concerned that that's his top priority. And I say to my friends, because they ask me.
Of course,
and,
yeah. Well, I mean, the
said,
normal
"Listen,"
condition is everybody's quizzy. We all want to know.
Right. And I say, listen, they say, should we be locking our doors? And,
Yeah.
and I said, do what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Close
of course
your
you should
garage
lock your
doors
door,
at
yeah,
night.
of
Lock your
course.
doors.
Leave a light on, whatever.
Get, if you have a security system, use it.
Yeah.
Lights that come on automatically when somebody walks by. All those security measures that you've been doing. And I said, if somebody dies in a drunk driving accident, you don't stop driving.
Exactly.
You make sure, are you wearing your seatbelt? If you see somebody driving erratically, are you backing off and calling to report it? So you take the normal precautions that you would as an everyday citizen. You can't be paralyzed by fear.
No, you cannot be.
And it's very frightening to think of, something like that happening in Bedford. But
Well, I just think it was so wrong that here we have a highly trained professional with a spotless reputation being badgered by residents who clearly don't know what they're talking about, including residents in leadership positions, which is scary unto itself. And I think it's ludicrous that, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's an assault on the morale of everybody who works in that department.
Yeah. Well, I think, quite frankly, like I said, I've been advising along with 2 assistants from my office. I've seen these guys working so hard.
I know.
And I think that criticism, they can't worry themselves about it right now. They have
And
a
they're
job
not.
to
They're
do.
doing their job.
They are
But it's not
absolutely
right. They
doing their
should have to
job.
put up
Yep,
with it.
They are chasing down, I can say, every lead that there is.
Yeah.
So they are, we're making progress. That's all I'll say. And
Well, I just wanted you to be able to tell, those people who are watching.
Right.
It's not because the chief, is trying to keep a secret or anything like that. I mean, there is a reason for all that happens in the legal system and the police system and so on.
Right.
And, I mean, people have just got to clearly understand. Back off.
Right.
Let everybody do their job.
And because of my ethical obligations, they're, imputed to the chief.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Everybody who works under me, if you will,
Yes.
everybody in law enforcement, they can't be releasing information either.
No, of course
so
not.
And
I mean, reporters are going to give it a shot. And, I mean, they
absolutely.
know. Anybody who's a reporter certainly knows kind of the rules of the game. But they're going to give it a shot. Any reporter who can get that little extra comment, yay, yay team. But
I think, Kathy, that sometimes, sadly, when there's nothing new that's coming out, like this case, I think sometimes reporters have a tendency to try to create news instead of reporting it. And that's unfortunate, and as far as the online blogs or the comment sections go, those, like I said, some people just want to get their say and put it out there, which is fine.
Well, it's easy to make cheap shots and so on when you're in an anonymous situation, too.
Right.
Face
that's
to
their
face,
right,
they might not be so brave with their comments, quite frankly.
Right. And I've worked with police officers my entire career, and what they go through every day is just incredible. People don't even know the half of the things they do and what they see. So I have true admiration for police officers, from the chiefs to right down to the patrol officers.
Well, I couldn't have you sitting here beside me without bringing that up, because if they're not going to listen to the police say, hey, there are reasons why we can't tell you, then maybe they'll at least listen to the county attorneys say, hey, there are reasons why we can't tell you.
Right.
So I
And
hope you
I'll
don't mind
take
that
the
I did
brunt.
that.
No, that's fine. I'll take the brunt of the criticism. I'm okay with that.
Well, that was totally off the, the mat on what we were going to talk about today. But see, that's what happens. You know, you come on, tell it like it is, and you just never know what's going to get
That's
thrown
okay.
at you.
And
But
I
you
hope
come
I have
anyway,
told
you
it
know?
like it is.
Yes, you have. You
Okay.
absolutely have. And I'm sure the police department will be happy to hear that, you know, you know what they're up against on this one. Okay, now getting back to county attorney.
Okay.
What else is in the offing for the next couple of months? I know you, and I have a feeling you've got a list this
I do.
long. Yeah,
I do, and it's so hard. You know, I've actually been, you know, kind of babysitting my cases that I
I
had because
bet.
I was in
I
an
bet.
unusual spot where I was a sitting prosecutor and running
Yes.
for office, as you know.
Yes.
That doesn't happen a lot.
No, it
So
does
I've
not.
actually, you know, I have somebody starting tomorrow who's taking over most of my cases.
Okay.
And one of my campaign promises, I said I would still maintain a caseload.
I remember you said that. Yeah.
I'm keeping a couple of cases, so major cases, not you know, minor drug possession cases.
Sure.
You know, I have some major cases, and you know, one of them involves a child as a victim, and I've met that child a few times, and I don't want to have him try to transition to another prosecutor. So that's, you know, that's one reason I'm keeping that case. And then another manslaughter case out of Hudson for a child. So both of my the two major cases that I'm keeping, and I'll probably take this case, the Bedford case. I've been consulting with that. So you know, that's one of my...
And that's good, because
Right.
that keeps your finger right in the pot, too.
Right, and also, you know, we're still, you know, so overworked that anything I can do to help the assistants,
Sure.
you know, I can't take on a full caseload, obviously. I have, you know,
Well,
other
no,
things,
no.
other
Not unless you wanna
irons
work
in the fire.
24
but,
hours a
right,
day, yeah.
right. And, but, you know, taking on some of those major cases will just hopefully ease the burden a little bit, because, you know, the staff and the county attorneys out there, just amazing, and I just want to take this time to say, you know, what they deal with every day, and the dedication they show
not for the
every
faint of
day.
heart, that's for sure.
It really isn't. And you know, I was talking with, and not just the prosecutors, but the legal assistants and the victim advocates. You know, I was talking to Dan Doherty's dad after the sentencing of Miles Webster, and he went on probably for about 10 minutes about our victim advocate that worked with them in that case, and he was just, you know, so, you know, admiring of her and the work that she did for them. So it's nice to hear that feedback from people appreciating what our office did, and you know, I love to hear that. And even, you know, during the campaign, I actually had one of my old defendants, his father was volunteered, was holding a sign for me, because I had, you know, it was one of those cases where first time nonviolent offender, I gave him a chance. And he's turning his life around. So it's great to get that feedback from not only victims but also defendants, you know, to say, hey, this is criminal justice, not, you know, it's justice for everybody. And that sometimes includes defendants, you know, who want it and earn it. So.
And I don't think people realize, I mean, you're all professionals, and it's like, you know, if you were a doctor or whatever, you have to keep that straight face when things are going on, that inside your own head you're going, oh my God. And that when you go home at night is still in your head.
It is.
But you obviously can't show that any more than a cop can, or a nurse, or a doctor, or whatever. You're dealing with some horrific situations sometimes.
Well, I have been known as during my especially child sexual assault cases, my staff, people I worked with as an assistant, they call me the crier, because I usually end up shedding a tear or two during closing arguments. It's very emotional, and you know, especially those cases.
Oh yeah.
And I think I said this, I might have even said it in our previous interview, you know, the day I can't get over, you know, emotional about a child being victimized, then is the day I really should stop being a prosecutor.
And I mean, some stories don't end well, and I say that because only this morning, when I had the news on Channel 9, I heard something and I went, aw. This has all been in the news recently, that a man from Salem, who lives in Salem now, like 40-something years after the crime they were prosecuting, the teenage murder in Lowell, Mass, that was in the 60s. And for those of you who haven't followed, it was a young 15-year-old boy murdered by some of his classmates because he had talked to a girl that one of them went with or whatever. And I guess all along people knew people who were involved and so on, but until there was finally a break in the case 40 years later, they're finally going to trial. And the one from Salem, the alleged murderer, went to trial just recently, and the jury just came in, I think it was on Friday.
Right, found him guilty.
Inexplicably found him not guilty.
Right.
And through the course of the trial, and then of course afterwards on Friday and such, when the media was there, they interviewed the boy's dad. And of course for the family, I mean, he was a 15-year-old kid, you know, who was a great kid, who was dead. And they never got the closure. And finally thought all these years later, maybe, you know. And of course when the jury came in with a not guilty, the father was on TV and he was crying, you know. He died yesterday.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I heard it on the news this morning, 80-something years old, and I thought, you know. And so, I mean, these are the type of stories that don't finish the right way, but people like you, it's still in your head, and it's going to stay in your head for a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think people totally understand that.
Right, and it, you know, it's frustrating sometimes. You know, I know, and I'm ethically, again, obligated. I don't bring a charge unless I feel they did commit this crime and that I can prove it in a court of law. Because we do get cases where, listen, we know this person did it, but proving it is another matter. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a unanimous, that is the highest burden there is. And there's a reason for that. You know, I accept that challenge every day when I go into court, that I have cases that I have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury. And that's how our criminal justice system works. It's the best criminal justice system in the world. But it is frustrating when you have, you know, like jury nullification or something, that they didn't feel this should be a crime or something, or hey, it happened a long time ago, or he's a young kid, and it's
all
like
it takes is one person.
Right, and it's a hung jury, So I have had some, you know, not guilties that I talked to the jury after, and you know, they didn't understand something, and you know, but that, hey, you know, live and learn, and next time I, you know, make sure that, okay, if they had an issue with this, I want to make sure I address that. So it's a continuing learning process.
Yeah, I'll give you and all your coworkers a lot of credit, because I don't think I'd do well, because I probably would have a really hard time keeping my mouth shut in some situations, you know, and it has to be one of the challenges of the job to always, you know, have to focus right in and go, can't talk about that, because that would be hard for me.
Right. Well, you know, we have case conferencing in the office, and we'll, you know, every week in both offices, and we'll hash out, you know, some cases that one of us might be having trouble with about what sentence to offer, or should we go forward with this. So that's, it's always, like I said, it's always a learning process.
I would imagine you have to be each other's support group a lot.
Right, and
because otherwise you'd go crazy.
Oh yeah, and you know, you have to, you know, I say, you know, presenting cases to the grand jury, and you know, I say, listen, you might hear me in the office or joke around a little bit. I said, you know, what we see is awful every day, and it's a way of relieving tension. Yeah,
there has to be a little macabre
rest assured,
humor.
we take everything we do very seriously, and it's just like you said, it's a tension reliever. But you know, some cases do have humorous aspects to them, you know. So, but it's not. You know,
we've all seen some of those that even make it on TV, you know, the stupid criminal or whatever.
Yeah, and we're not laughing, certainly not laughing at somebody being victimized.
No, I know that.
You know, but it's, some, you know, like, some criminals are, you know.
Pretty dumb.
Right, and they make mistakes that are, you know, kind of silly. But.
Yep, we've all heard about them,
yeah.
including in New Hampshire.
Exactly.
Well, we are kind of getting into the tail end, and if we end on time in about roughly 3 minutes or less, my esteemed director, cameraman, and nag back there is going to turn off that camera. So in fact, we don't even have 3 now. We got it to 2.
Yeah.
I want you to close. What would you like to tell people before we end this?
Well, first I want to thank everybody for their votes and for the election. And I met some great people out campaigning. And, you know, as Hillsborough County Attorney, I oversee, you know, an entire staff of people dedicated to making sure that victims of felony crimes in Hillsborough County get justice, whether it be money back that was stolen or a sense of safety from somebody who has hurt them. So if you have any issues with anything, I would encourage you, you know, if you see a crime or are the victim of a crime, report it to your local police department. And if my office can be of any assistance, I'm really looking to revamp our website to give more information to the public. But if you want me to speak, to teach, educate people about crime prevention, I would be happy to do that. So please contact my office. And I just want to really let you know how much I appreciate everybody in our office who does the work that they do. I'm here as the figurehead, but it's really the prosecutors, secretaries, investigators, and advocates who do the brunt of the work.
It was such a delight having you here again.
Thank
and we're
you.
going to see you again in a couple weeks
Oh,
because we're
yes.
going to do something on the Children's Alliance, and I
Right.
guess we're even going to go out on a field trip.
We
yes.
are. Hopefully we'll get a tour of the Child Advocacy Center in
Yes.
Manchester.
Yeah, that'll be
Yes.
great. Yeah,
Yes.
well, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you very much for having me again.
Oh,
It was wonderful to
It was
see
a delight, yeah. Well, everybody, you have, if you didn't meet her before in previous interviews, you've had a chance now to listen to and meet our county attorney, Patricia LaFrance, and I think you can agree with me that she's one heck of a lady and is going to do one heck of a job, and definitely tells it like it is. Yes, our kind of folks. So till next time, keep on watching, and bye-bye.